Hey, everybody. So I want to welcome you back to the Next Level Leap podcast. And I'm here with our Director of Operations for the Advanced Women's Expert Network. This is Raven Lovelock. Hey, Raven.
Hello, it is my pleasure to be here. I'm so happy and excited to have this chat with you today. So thank you for inviting me.
Yes. Raven is happy and excited, and she's also very happy to be behind the scenes of a company. So she, when I invited her, she was like, really? But I think it's so good for people who are listening to know that, first of all, if they're listening to me, like, I'm not a one-woman show. I will be bringing on more and more team members so they understand that this is a team effort. Everything that we do, the different programs and companies and membership and all of that. And second of all, that y'all need a Raven. Y'all need a Raven.
I agree.
If you don't have one, you are missing out, which is what you're going to find out on this podcast episode. So you're the Fractional Director of Operations at the Advance. And when you first came in, first of all, you were recommended through a friend. So I was basically like, when can you start?
Right.
And you're also very particular about companies that you work with. Actually, I'm going to start by asking, like, what was it about the Advance or working with me that you found appealing?
Yeah, I have to say that my experience working with other companies in an operational capacity, I've seen that the culture can sometimes be a culture that may not be appealing to most operators. And what I mean by that is that you don't allow for operators to have the freedom to actually do what they do best, to actually integrate, manage a team, lead a team. And I think that a lot of that comes from visionaries that kind of like still have the hold on the day-to-day operations and the tasks within the day-to-day. And it's difficult for them to let go, which is completely understandable. But at the same time, it kind of causes the strain that you're unable to really operate in your full capacity as a DOO. And so when I first had a couple of chats with you, and we were kind of just like working through like what our relationship would look like, what this partnership would look like, I just felt so welcomed into your team. You had an awesome culture. And I know I sat in on your first team meeting. And I remember telling you, I was like, Laura, the fact that you just allow your team members to sit with their thoughts, kind of mull through whatever ideas or brainstorming thoughts that they have going on is so refreshing, because I know that that's kind of really difficult to come across. So that's one of the main things that I appreciated about the Advance and your leadership here at the Advance.
That's awesome. I would say that I don't pay her to say that, but I actually do. And but it is fun to hear what other people have to say. And I mean, you come from an incredible background in terms of, like, you come from a business size that's much bigger than the business that you're currently helping me with, specific to membership. So I think for me, it's like, why wouldn't I want that? Right? Like, why wouldn't I want that voice? And everybody on that team is so talented. And, I'm eager. I'm always interested and curious to hear what people have to say. And so when you first came in, what are some of the first things that you did to help us run our business better?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, as you know, I kind of came on in a slow transition. And once I started to learn more about the team and the company itself, I implemented a few things, right? Like one-on-one team or time with the team, community-specific brainstorm sessions, quarterly software audits, quarterly SOP reviews. And a big one that also really stands out to me was kind of just getting the entire team together, not just the full-time staff, but also including, and this is the key to this, I think, just including contractors and fractional team members, which contribute to the bottom line. And I know we had weekly team meetings beforehand, which you did an excellent job of running. But I think an important piece for an integrator, such as myself, coming in to execute a CEO's vision, such as yourself, Laura, is to have a relationship with every single person on the team that makes an impact. And having that team's confidence in who I am as a leader really helps to get their buy-in for the future that you've envisioned for the company. And before even thinking of implementing any of those things, I needed to prioritize observation and learning, because I find that within the workforce, regardless whether you're in corporate, in the online space, the thought process of walking into the door on day one, hitting the ground running is a hot commodity. And there's nothing wrong with grinding it out and taking action on day one. But I found from my experience that the power of deep and thorough training, onboarding, observation, and learning is truly underestimated.
Yeah.
And there needs to be this healthy balance of learning and taking action to set an incoming integrator or team member in general up for success. So what did it look like for me coming into the advance? Understanding the culture, observing how the team interacts, what kind of decisions did you as the CEO make, immersing myself into the products and services, and just really taking that time to understand the business inside and out. Because there's been countless of times where I've seen leaders dive headfirst into a business to then come to month 3 or month 6 and realize, wow, I never really had the opportunity or time to learn all of the products and
Yes.
understand the business at the core. But by that point, you've made critical business decisions, you've made
Mhm.
changes, you've added salt and pepper to your food without tasting it first.
Right.
What if the
Love
food
that.
was spicy to begin with and you just came in and added sriracha to something that needed sugar?
Yeah. And you're already like, I already got a spicy CEO. I don't need a spicy meal too.
Exactly. I remember one of our initial chats, Laura, just looking this out. I don't know if I ever commended you for it, but you mentioned to me that you like to ease your team members in so that you kind of, so they get a feel for the business and vice versa. And it's worked out positive for you. So I stand behind that approach 100% because it just truly puts me in the best position to have been able to audit the business and then lead the team.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting because I'm actually hiring right now for the consulting business full time. And it's the first time in a long time that I haven't moved somebody from part time to full time. And I'm still kind of like, oh gosh, how are we going to do this? Because I'm so used to that. It doesn't work for everybody in every role and every position. Right. But I'm so used to that because I think it's like, okay, this is the week where you can perfect this particular area of the business. And this is the week where you can get familiar with our cash flow mechanism. This is the week where we can get familiar with onboarding, and you handle all aspects of the business at this point, but we started you just in finance and operations and then layered on marketing, which is more my expertise over time, and getting the right person in place who can report to you and who can speak the right language was also a big part of that, of I think that your success path for you. um,
Oh.
and then I remember like about a month or 2 ago, you brought something to me and I was like, I really try not to curse on the podcast, so I'll spell it out. But I was like, I don't know, that sounds like integrator, SHIT to me. And you just started laughing and you're like, I guess I'll make that decision then. And we joke around a lot because I think, you're running a company and things can get stressful and you might as well have fun, right? But it was at that point where I was like, okay, like you're good. Like you're running these team meetings better than I ever could. You have people like filling out slides and they're like reporting in. I was like, I didn't do any of that. Like you've got that covered at this point. You got our overseas team members involved in the team meetings, which we didn't do before. So there was so much that was happening that was positive that like, I was like, no touchy, like you do it.
Yeah. And that's great. And that just kind of like circles back to my point of one of the reasons why I just kind of like loved and what I saw coming into the advance is just your ability to just be open, let go of the vine, and just allow for me as an operator to do what I do best. So
Yes. Yeah. It's a win-win for everybody. It's not easy to do, right? I think for both sides, for you, it's probably like stepping into that role and taking responsibility for things that do have, there's pressure to the outcome, right? That the outcome has to be good for people to be able to stay in their roles and the company be able to do what it needs to do. And then from my side, it's tough because you're trusting other people that you're, in the process of developing a relationship with to finally let go. But ultimately, I think when you've been around the block as an entrepreneur, like there's no other way. There's really no other way to function if you are going to run an elegant business. If you're going to grind it out all day, every day, yeah, I guess you could try to control everything. But at a certain point, if you want your business to grow, part of that decision is letting go of control. And if you want to have a life and have kids and play as much tennis as I do, it's probably beneficial for that to happen sooner than later. Do you think it's easier for someone to come in to your position and audit the business and its needs rather than the business owner determining what needs to happen? I know you kind of alluded to that in the last answer, but I think it's really interesting to dig into that a little bit further. And I would say this is specific for your for your position?
Yeah, so I think this is an interesting perspective-based question because this can go either way. You can have the argument that no one knows my baby better than I do. That's my CEO voice. Or I have unbiased fresh eyes that can help you see your blind spots. That's my operator voice. And honestly, I'm Switzerland. I agree with both. The
Yes.
business owner is right. Why? Because no one will ever know their baby better than they do. They hold deep-rooted day one institutional knowledge. But the operator is also right because they have expertise and that detailed eye to audit on an operating level, especially coming in with a fresh perspective. So neither position would necessarily be the easier or hard way. They're just different perspectives. And what I mean by that is when you bring in an operator from the outside to your unique business, regardless of the industry or similar businesses that that operator has had experience working in, they will more than likely have a different perspective on your business and spot or see things because of quote unquote fresh eyes. They're going to be able to see that 30,000-foot view of the business, which can be different or similar than that of the business owner, who will most likely be biased or simply just be stuck in the day-to-day, which makes it a little bit more difficult for them to step back and truly see what the business needs. And that's not to say that the business owner's perspective is wrong by any means or incorrect. It just means that it may not be thorough and they could be blinded by their own biases a little bit. So ultimately, I think it's important to have both involved in an audit in some capacity, right? So earlier I talked about the importance of learning and observation when an integrator comes into a business. And at the very beginning of that relationship is the pivotal moment in which those insights are formed. So someone in my position can come in and audit a company, but the business owner and only the business owner is the one that holds the ultimate vision, which is the insight that the operator absolutely needs as support in determining what the business needs. So the business owner's vision and thoughts may not be the answer in its entirety, but I would come in with my expertise to help guide and fill any gaps that the business owners may not see. So it's not that it's easier for one or the other to do an audit. It's just different perspectives that require the magic that happens when a DOO and CEO partners to be able to see the full picture.
Yeah, I think that's so, so powerful. And, it's so funny because a little ding just came through as you were talking. And I was like, oh, shoot, I hope we can take that out. But it's like one of my kids requesting more screen time because I thought I had shut off all my notifications. But this is like when you're talking about what it is that you do and, family distractions that come in and the needs of what we are trying to do as entrepreneurs, right? We're trying to wear all these hats. I think that's where a lot of the biases come from
Mhm.
is I have this finite amount of time to do this particular thing according to my preset dreams and goals. And at the same time, for many of us, we're also trying to fill other roles. Like we're trying to take care of our own physical, emotional, mental health. We are trying to take care of, for me, 3 kids under 10. My husband's extremely helpful. I'm very blessed. But some are like another kid, right? For some people. And it can be very overwhelming. And I think for you just to be able to look at it from the outside, somebody like you who can provide that external perspective without that pressure. Because for many of us who are entrepreneurs, we are feeling an endless amount of pressure and noise. And I think over time, that used to really rattle me. And over time, I've gotten used to it as an entrepreneur. But I also know that like that voice of reason, it has always been critical for me. Like whenever I'm running a company, I'm always looking for that person that I know that can come in and provide that perspective. So I love how you just shared that because yes, I know my company really well. And I would say particularly when it comes to things like messaging, particularly when it comes from like guest experience, client experience, we probably know best because that vision was planted within us before that company was even born, in terms of how we were going to go about the brand experience. But when it comes to like finance, operations, workflow, team, we can be biased in a negative direction, I think,
Yeah.
by this like incredibly strong vision that we have.
Yeah.
And so in my consulting company, I have somebody in that role in the advance, you're in that role. And I rely on that to be, to provide me with my blind spots, provide me insight into my blind spots. And I just know without that as an entrepreneur, you can get really caught up in
Yeah.
your own, tunnel vision.
Yeah,
So,
I 100% agree there. Yeah, you've hit it on the nail.
yeah. So some people might be listening, and in the online space, we call them DOOs or fractional DOOs. So you take other clients in addition to the advance. In the traditional business space, they call them integrators. That's the more common term because that came out of EOS or scaling up or whatever methodology they tend to use. But what do you think? What do you think that visionaries need to know about hiring that role?
Oh, I love this question. Firstly, I think it's important to talk about what a DO does in a business because a lot of times visionaries don't know, and they also don't know a DO is what they actually need.
Mhm.
I find that they start to invest in niche roles like an HR director, finance director, project manager, legal assistant, director of customer success. I can go on. And my thoughts to that is, okay, but now who manages them? Can
Right.
you? And if you don't have the budget to hire all of those roles, only one, let's say an HR director, then what happens to the rest of the core areas like finance, legal, customer service? Can't be you, at least not effectively. And a lot of times you don't need so many of those niche roles within the small business and online space. Vendors and contractors for those roles work just as fine, depending on the business model and structure you have, of course. Now, where the DOO comes in is that we are that high level operator that is the counterpart of the CEO who leads the business in all of those niche core areas, right? So HR, legal, finance and data, customer service, project management. And some of us have specialties in those areas too. But DOs are mostly generalists who may not have expertise in any of those one areas, but I assure you, we know enough to be dangerous to liaison and manage the experts that need to be integrated into the team. So I usually find myself quoting Natalie Gingrich, who's an amazing thought leader in the operations space. And she states that one of the greatest gifts that a DOO will give to a CEO is sanity, just straight up sanity. So if you're finding that as a business owner, you are holding multiple functions within your business, and you've made the decision to make new hires to offboard and delegate some tasks within your business, I'll challenge you to think, okay, wait a minute, do I need an expert in any of these disciplines or do I need an integrator? And then when you start to hire for new roles, it will feel a little bit better, probably will, but I can almost guarantee you'll hear yourself say sooner or later, man, I've hired more people, but how is it that I feel busier than I ever have before? And I'll tell you why. It's because you've now adopted the role of an integrator or a DOO. So with management comes leadership. So whether you have a small to large team, you now have to manage and not only act as the visionary, but you're also acting as the integrator. And this is how you know that it's time to hire a director of operations they so that I can take on, or I or they can take on the integrator piece so that you have the vision, or you have the time to be able to allocate back to your vision, strategy, planning, visibility, PR, professional development, and the places that you really shine and are desperately needed.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because I love that you say that. It's a matter, I think, for many leaders to think about what is it that I can do that no one else can. And for many people in the online space, it's like creating the content videos, writing, recording these types of podcasts, episodes. It is for many people reviewing or writing content. It
Mhm.
is providing leadership. It's thinking about the big picture strategy. Those are the things that it's very difficult for other people to do that if you have any type of personal attachment to your brand.
Yeah.
If you're, a toilet paper company, probably not. But if
Mhm.
you are a online company, that's probably where you're going to be spending your time. And and those things often go to the wayside, which hurts the company
Yeah.
when you're also the person trying to figure out, the customer service solution to the latest, operational challenge. And I know for me, there was a point in which we thought, we might have to create some movement on the team of some different things. And you were like, it's all right, we'll handle it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like as in we I think you mean you. And you were like, yeah, no, I'll handle it. And I was like, oh, really? Okay. So I don't have to figure out how to post it and get the resumes. And it's funny because Sarah, who's in that role in the consulting company, is doing it right now. And I'm like, wow, this is
Nice.
amazing. Like, you just tell me what needs to get done, and then I can just be me. And I think what happens is for people who are competent, which was my challenge for a long time, is that I'm competent at most areas of business just as a function of nurture, not nature, just as a function of being an entrepreneur for 20 years. Like I could do finance, I could do operations, like I'm capable. It's not my area of genius, right? But then all of a sudden you're doing it and you're like, this is not the highest, best use of me. And I think if you have that like moment, even if you can, doesn't mean you should. And I think like having that moment and recognizing that voice inside of yourself, I think is really important, that you need a Raven.
Yeah, 100%. That was a beautiful ending line, Laura.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You set me up beautifully. We make a great team. So I know, you do this for other companies, which I'm always, such an advocate of you and everything that you want to accomplish in your life and your career. If somebody just wanted to reach out to you, they just had questions, they wanted to even learn more about what it's like to be a DOO or anything like that, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on IG, Raven_Lovelock, and it's spelled as it sounds, or you can visit my website, ravenlovelock.com.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, it's a beautiful website. All right, well, thank you so much, Raven, for being here. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you.
Thank you. It was great to be here. Thanks, Laura.